Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
The Calgary Flames take down the Seattle Kraken in their visit to the Emerald City. Not in regulation, not in overtime, but way of the shootout end. Some unknown or unheralded stars shine the way. My name's Conrad Krausert. Welcome to Game Over Calgary, and as I said in chat, what a grid-in win. Okay, that may be a worse pun than I thought it was when I typed it out. But the Flames and Matvei Gridin certainly took this game over, and even though the score says 2-1, a probably much more entertaining game than even I suspected from this Calgary Flames roster, who I didn't know that this was a regular thing for a lot of teams, but who flew in allegedly after morning skate today was taking place in Calgary. Obviously, when you're in the regular season, you take the morning skate in the city you're playing in, but the Flames, of note, had practice here in Calgary, and I heard that one of my housemates who works at CSEC got to watch some of practice while he was working on his job down at the Dome. So, he probably saw some of these guys before they headed at the bus to the airport, to the private charter to Seattle, and they had to probably delay the takeoff of that charter by a little bit after tonight. But as we usually do, let's go through the scoring summary throughout this game, and you know what? Nothing much to talk about in the first period. A very close contest through the first period, where the Flames were actually above 70% in the face-off dot. And I don't know if you guys all follow me on Blue Sky or not. If you're not, head on over, or if you're on Blue Sky, head on over there. Give me and this channel a follow. But the Flames won the face-off dot battle by a wide margin, but we're down in shots 5-17. And I know it's a dead horse at this point, but the Calgary Flames not coming to start a game in the first period. It starts in the preseason. It's getting ahead. We're getting ahead of it early. The storylines, the song remains the same. KQ, who should get the backup spot? They both look weak. KQ, that was one of my talking points in the last episode, in the third period. So if you want to go back in time, but I'll save that for the overtime period. Yeah, but the Flames, as I said, were up to a 72, and I think I even saw about midway through the Flames were at about a 90% face-off win in this game. But God, they couldn't shoot the puck, and maybe just bounced off one or two too many legs. But just not firing shots on net in the first. But they get away with it. No score in that first period. And only one penalty. Nick Cechek got a high-sticking minor against Matty Beniers. Cechek looked a lot better today. I know I got on his case a little bit last time he was in the lineup. But looked a little bit better today in a limited role. But anyways, we'll continue. To the second 20 we go, and Berkeley Catton gets the score started in this one. I was actually just finishing up some chores around the house when this goal was scored. Just kind of, the Flames looked like they were running around. It goes off a leg, and you saw the Flames not able to pick up the player in behind. Who was that on the play that wasn't able to get to his man? I believe it might have been Morton, if I'm remembering correctly, or if I'm looking at this correctly. No, that was in fact Hunter Brustevich, who couldn't get to his man off of the leg rebound. And that led to the first and only goal of the Seattle Kraken's night. Despite, maybe a possible goal of the preseason if it had gone in a little bit later in the game. Then we go to the Flames' answer, and it is, as I said, Matvei Gridin. I apologize. I'm so used to saying Matvei Gridin. because that's how they were saying it over the last few years, and it seems to be have gone to Gridden. But oh my god, Ilya Solovyov. What a pass to start the headman on this. Because that's, if we're going back to the 90s, it's a two-line pass and we're calling it back, but unfortunately, Sidney Crosby can complain all he wants. That rule is not coming back. The breakout pass to Matvei Gridin was absolutely brilliant. Morgan Frost picks up a secondary assist for causing the turnover in his own zone. Got it up the boards to Ilya Solovyov, and as I said, I think you have to give 2/3 of this goal to the first assist, finding Gridin in behind the two defenders. Third period, or we'll talk about shots on goal in a second. 8-9 for the Flames, a little bit more even. That was kind of the story for the rest of the night. So again, just the Flames not starting on time. Power plays throughout the second. Both teams get one. Of course, there's the offsetting penalties between Dunn and Pospisil. Pospisil taking another high sticking call. Pospisil, I think, was worse than a ghost, like KQ's talking about in chat about Sam Honzek. I think Marty Pospisil might have played himself off of this roster after getting a extension in the offseason. But again, that's a talking point for a little bit later. Third period, no goals are scored. And you know what? It was a high-paced period. Chances going both ways. And Dustin Wolf, oh my, are we blessed to have that young man signed long-term. Because he was locked in. Saw a couple of times in the second period that I didn't talk about. Just getting out to the top of his crease, cutting down angles aggressively. That glove got so much more action than I think Dustin really wanted to. But held the fort down, and that's what you've got to play your top guy to do. Even though it is preseason. And hey, I didn't expect Dustin Wolf to play any preseason games away from home. But he got this one, backed up by Owen Say, who I think he'll be the number 2 goalie in the AHL based on the fact that he's the guy that stuck around in camp. That's not one of the 2 backups we're talking about, not named Dustin Wolf. So I think we'll see a little bit of Owen Say in the AHL this year. Only penalty is the Alexiak interference. Middle of the period. Flames power play did not really do much. I'm not going to put as much stake into it as I did as the Flames struggles on the power play early in the regular season. You're seeing a lot of guys rotate through. You saw Hunter Bustevich manning the power play, and I actually thought he was quite good in his minutes with power play 1. And in fact, I think we'll talk about this later as well. I think he's been one of the best Flames since his disappointing time at the development showcase or whatever you wanted to call it up in Edmonton. But yeah, thought he looked really, really good. But that, as I said, solves nothing. And Seattle thinks they have scored. But no, it's off the post. The very tippy top corner ricochets down off the far post and stays out. I'm not even sure who took the shot because I didn't make note of it. I was ready to throw my computer out the window. It's preseason, but the Flames are going to get beaten overtime again. How could this happen? Hey, Anand, do you remember who took that shot in overtime that hit off both posts? Because it was a pretty loaded lineup for the Kraken today. But as the Flames said, what an overtime period that was. Overtime solves nothing, much to the chagrin of, I think, the Seattle fans in attendance. I think I saw the guy who had the Stitch jersey throw his hands up in the air and just stand there. Like, that wasn't a goal. No, it wasn't. We go to the shootout. So I did take notes on how this shootout went, so I can actually describe the moves to you. So we'll start with Barclay Goodrow, who it was weird to see him in a Kraken uniform, and one of the names that's rotated over to Seattle in the off-season. It was a slow forehand backhand that just got Dustin Wolf off his line a little bit. Had been backing up back to the goal line. That one snuck through. I don't think Wolf was too happy with that one. Flames answer with... Oh my goodness, I thought I had it all written down. Oh, okay, of course I didn't. The one name I don't put down is Morgan Frost, as I edited it too fast. because he did come in a little bit faster and then just threw on the brakes and tucked a wrister under the glove of the Kraken goaltender Philip Grubauer, tied up at ones. Berkeley Catton came in with some fast speed, had the wrister, which kind of was the next three guys all tried to go use speed and go to the wrist shot. Dustin Wolf stops the first one. Berkeley Catton can't tie it up. And then the Kirkland signature move comes in as Costco breaks down, gets his move, but cannot beat the post. Move that had a 100% success rate in the NHL and a high success rate in the AHL. 0 for 1 to start the year. Start the panic. Season's over. The move's defeated. Just kidding. Didn't get stopped by a goaltender yet. We move on. Matty Beniers had a wrister from the bottom of the circles gloved, and Dustin Wolf, I don't think he was very happy about it. I think he kind of gave Matty Beniers the stare down as he went over past the circles, and you know what? I don't mind that from Dustin Wolf. We think of him as this jovial guy doing the jumps to get warmed up, but if he's going to stare down a future superstar, you have to think in Matty Beniers, or maybe a future star. Superstar might be a little heavy. I'll take it. And then I'm kind of shocked to see Matt Coronado get in as deep as he did. For a guy that has the release that he does, I would like to see him shoot with a little bit more range. He tried to make Grubauer open that 5-hole up, tried to find it with that quick release. Bounces off the pads. I want to see Matt Coronado shoot that puck and not come in as close. However, he's an NHL athlete. I'm a guy sitting in my basement talking about this game. Then it goes to the 4th overall selection, shooting for Shane Wright, as he's now a full-time NHLer. He tried to pull that same fast to slow move that Frost did. He tried to go 5-hole. It was stopped by Dustin Wolf. And then Matt Vagridden. So you got the goal earlier, kid. Jump over the boards. And oh my god, I haven't seen the slow pace back and forth in quite a while. But he seemed to have lulled Grubauer to sleep. Fired an absolute laser beam just under the bar. Matt Vagridden 2, Seattle Kraken 1. Flames win in the shootout. So a couple of names when I go through this lineup. I'm just going to go through the projected lineup that we had from CalgaryFlames.com. Kind of give my thoughts, because we'll probably use period 2 to talk about probably the roster trim that's going to come shortly. So give me a second. I'm just going to have some of the seasonal cranberry ginger ale that's going around on the shelves. And hey, it's Flames colors. It's red. Couple questions. I'll get to those after we go through this, Anand, as we head into period number 2. Matt Vagridden, 2 goals. Looked really good. He was actually, even before he scored, was one of the names that I had a star next to. And obviously seeing him playing with the combination of Frost and Coronado makes me think the coaching staff sees something in this young man. Whether that's going to be a top line appearance with the big club come the 8th against Edmonton, who knows? I think he's certainly battled his way forward and certainly made his case to be in that middle 6 on the left side. Joel Farabee, or Morgan Frost, Matt Coronado. I actually thought this was one of Matt C's weaker games. I actually didn't really love how he was back-checking in the overtime. But as I said, still one of the best players in this Flames roster, night in, night out. Morgan Frost, again, playing in a role that we won't see him in at all this season. Joel Farabee, you know, kind of invisible today. On a line that I thought actually had had one guy that played really well and one guy that I think might have played his way off the opening day roster. Rory Cairns, I don't see how you send this guy down through waivers. He's done nothing but be a spark plug this entire season. It's kind of how I felt about Kirkland coming out of camp last year, or even Sam Honzek last year. Guys that played so incredibly well that I didn't think that they would make it through. Obviously, Honzek doesn't require waivers yet, but I think he's certainly one of those guys that might have played himself into a spot to start this year. When I thought, oh, you see the Kirkland get the deal, the 1 year prove it. Oh, he needs waivers to go through. But I think Rory Cairns might have made himself undeniable or inevitable. Whatever words you want to say, I think Rory Cairns has certainly taken that bull by the horns and rode it into the Calgary Stampede. Did that necessarily work as a turn of phrase? No, not at all, but I'm going to go with it. And then the guy I think that might have played his way off the starting lineup, Adam Klapka. Last year, as I said last year, at least Klapka is 6'4". He is playing like he's about 5'4". He has been invisible. The only time he's being physical is after the whistles. And I think there's lots of guys that can do that maybe provide a lot more spark and a lot more firepower. As much as I love having Adam Klapka on the other side of Ryan Lomberg, just so you can say, here's 5'8" Ryan Lomberg and 6'4" Adam Klapka coming both at you at a scrum. He just hasn't impressed me this year. Speaking of Ryan Lomberg, he was on the line with Justin Kirkland and Martin Pospisil. Marty Pospisil. Marty Party, as I said on Blue Sky the other day, it might be time for Marty Party in the USA. He might go through waivers. He might get claimed. And I think I'm partially okay with that. Because, oh boy, he has spent more time sitting in the box of shame than he has necessarily on the ice. It's just, I think the two guys that trained together have maybe been the worst two Calgary Flames on the ice in Pospisil and Sam Honzek. Maybe you guys need to train with someone else. All I'm going to say here. Kirkland, as I said, he's not been bad, but he's just getting outplayed by Rory Cairns. And for a guy that's a veteran and a lot of guys feel good story of the year, that's probably tough to say. But it's getting outplayed in preseason. And I think if you've got somebody who's going versus somebody who's a feel good story, I think I know which way I'm leaning for that 12th/13th roster spot in the forwards. And hey, it might only be 12 if this Flames team, like was suggested again today, carries 8 defensemen into the regular season. Then that third line of Sam Morton, Ardar Suniev, and Sam Honzek. I heard Morton's name lots. I think he's probably been the second most impressive center in camp, and the only reason he's so low is Rory Cairns has been absolutely red hot. And then Adar Suniev. I don't know what to think of Adar Suniev. I was looking at his elite prospects today. I'm like, is this a guy that's just adjusting to the North American ice surface? No, this is a guy who hasn't played in Russia since the pandemic. He played in Russia in 2020, 2021 for CSKA Moscow's amateur divisions, but has been on this side of the pond for, let's call it 8 or 9 years now, as far back as elite prospects goes. I wanted to see more out of Suniev because there was so much shine on him coming into this season. I haven't seen it. Didn't see it in the one game he played to end the year last year necessarily. Haven't seen it through the preseason. And I get it. This is a young man, only 20 years of age. I think he has to start in the Wranglers and probably a little bit lower down that lineup than you would like to see. Because yeah, he's been in North America since 2019, where he played with the Yale Junior Bulldogs for a few games, and then eventually transferred to the Hill Academy for their U16 program. Hill Academy, one of those programs that has come up to the Circle K Classic. And then was supposed to play for St. Andrews College, and then obviously some virus came, and that whole year was effectively negated. Comes back to St. Andrews College, 11 goals, 13 goals and 10 assists in 11 games. Eventually finds his way to the Penticton V's in the BCHL. 20 points in 17 games. 90 points the next year in the BCHL. 45 goals, 45 assists. And then good seasons at UMass. Just, I don't know. Young player. There's still a lot of meat on that bone, so to say. Just hasn't impressed me in preseason. Defense, Jake Bean, Braden Bahal. That's probably going to be one of your rotational 7 or 5-6 pairings throughout this year. I've heard a lot of calls for Jake Bean to be the guy that gets to see the AHL, and we'll see if through that he can fight his way back. I'm sure the Denim Man's not happy to hear me say that. Braden Bahal, and as I said on a previous broadcast, last year we had him in that third pairing, slotted in Penn. I think there's a lot of right-handed guys that are behind him that are pressing into that. Guys like two guys that stood out today in Ilya Solovyov and Hunter Brustevich. Nick Cechek, white toast. You didn't do anything offensive. You didn't really do anything great either. I think Ilya Solovyov was best when he wasn't out there with Nick Cechek. And then we saw Yan Kuznetsov and Hunter Brustevich. And this is a pairing that worked very well for the Calgary Wranglers last year. I looked into pairings and their time on ice through a site called Dober's Frozen Tools. And 12.9% of faceoffs and events that the Flames had, or the Wranglers had last year, were when the combination of Hunter Brustevich and Yan Kuznetsov were on the ice. They had 31 goals for, 26 goals against. That's a +5. Hey, that's a pretty good pairing at that level. And hey, I think it might have been the best pairing the Flames had out on the ice today. And I think actually when you had Solovyov and Brustevich, when it's kind of that period between actually getting your full defensive pairing up, I didn't mind that either, even though they're both right-hand shots. So I think the Flames, if you ask me, if I could take the mind of Craig Conroy for 2 days as we come up to the roster locks before the regular season, I'd be really trying to find a way to maybe allow both the trio of Ilya Solovyov, Hunter Brustevich, and Yan Kuznetsov to find their way in. Obviously, I don't think you can do that without carrying 8 defensemen, which drives me nuts. That's probably going to mean Ilya Solovyov starts the year in the AHL if you're going to find a way to have Kuznetsov and Brustevich make their way up together. But who knows? I don't get that power as much as I wish I did. Then Dustin Wolf goes the full 60 minutes. I had my rant about how the Flames were using their goaltenders last game. I don't love giving everybody 60 minutes. I think I'd like to see, for instance, I'd like to see Cooley and Prosvetov play 30 minutes against the same competition and kind of have that be a direct comparable, but that's not what I'm going to get out of this coaching staff. So as we transition into the second period, I am going to read the questions from my usual co-host, and Guy will be joining us once again on the program on Wednesday. A couple questions for me to jungle. Does Gridden start in the NHL after seeing him today? I had that conversation. I would like to think that that is a possibility. Do I think it's necessarily what the coaching staff sees? Who knows? As I said, he's with some top quality line mates. So maybe the coaching staff is saying, let's put you up there and see what you can do and see if you can wrestle that middle six forward away from someone else. Cuts tomorrow or before Wednesday. I don't know. I want to see the roster they run out Wednesday. Because as we all know, there's only 2 games left in the regular season. So I think you got to start making cuts sooner than later just to give the day one starters a little bit more ice time in practice and a few more looks during that time on the ice sheets. But is that necessarily mean that you need to send guys down all at once? No. And like some of these guys that you're worried about potentially losing to waivers, maybe Craig Conroy needs to figure out there's a bunch of centers going down right now, so we're going to send down 3 guys to the Wranglers that are potentially going to get claimed, just so that there's more depth, so that they have to think about whether you are going to claim a guy like Justin Kirkland. Looking at you, Vegas Golden Knights, who seem to love claiming Calgary Flames on waivers. Hey, we did the same. Or hey, if you want to sneak down a guy like a Yan Kuznetsov, who I think does require waivers, my brain is completely correct. Do it on a day where there's a little bit more depth. So maybe you keep them in camp a few extra days to kind of get them lost in the commotion, I guess. And question 3 from Anand. How do you see this goalie battle happening? Wolf probably played his last preseason game today. I don't necessarily think that. I'd like to see, as I said, I would rather see you do a 30-30 in one of the home games of Prosvetsov and Cooley. Whether that's against the Canucks on Wednesday, which is probably the game that I would give to the two backups. Because I want to see Dustin Wolf against that Jets team on Friday, October 3rd. Because I still think you need to give Wolf a free and a bit game cushion. Or 2 and a bit game preparation in the preseason is about where I want to see a goaltender who I'm expecting to play around 60 games this year. Remember, he wasn't invited to U.S. camp, so he is probably going to get that break around the Olympics. So he maybe will get a little bit more battery to play that 60-plus games. But I don't know. But I do foresee him playing one more game in the preseason. Guys that are... Okay, I'm going to... Hey, we're turning this... Okay. Hold with me for a bit. That will be my overtime. How does that sound? We'll talk about the hot seat. For guys in the overtime period. Does that sound okay? Because I answered all of Anand's questions here for the second period, even though he couldn't be here with me. Thanks, Mount Royal. Scheduling classes until 8 o'clock. Karen Owen and Alana Geek, you can schedule those classes. Love you, Karen. Love you, Alana. Yeah. I got a bit of a shorter third period. Because the Flames obviously had a bit of a change behind the bench this year. So the return of former Calgary Flames player Dave Lowry behind the bench, obviously likely going to coach against his son here on the 3rd. And you also saw Trent Cull being promoted up to the big squad full-time this year. It's going to be a little bit different. And we're already starting to see some of the differences in Lowry. Because I think, as they've said, I think Lowry's in charge of the power play. And hey, remember, he spent the last 3 seasons down with that Kraken squad we just saw. Who are also going to go through a bit of transition. But it's going to be interesting to see what Cull and Lowry do to change this squad. Because as we know, it's the highest points ever earned by a non-playoff team last year. You don't change a whole lot this year. You let go of my boy Dan Vladar. And you don't really bring in that many guys. You're letting some of these kids fight for a limited number of spots. Obviously, the Flames really only lost Kevin Rooney, who was kind of a rotational guy to start with. So, what does the coaching staff change? And obviously, Cale McLean and Ryan Husker, your 2 returning coaches, will obviously instill some of the same systems. But if I can't remember if it's Cull or Lowry handling the special teams, or if they're splitting those duties, or hey, maybe Dave Lowry is just brought in to work with the centers. They struggled so handily last year. And also a big shout out to Jordan Sigalet and Jason LaBarbera and Jamie Pringle. All hail to the Pringle replay gods. But we'll have to see how this coaching staff starts to gel. And how their systems do continue to work. Because I'm sure it's a work in progress here. And how much of that is Brett Sutter and his coaching staff going to continue with David Lifton and Joe Cirella? God, it's so weird to see Brett Sutter as a coach. You were playing last year, for goodness sakes. And big shout out to Brad Pascal, the Wranglers GM and the Flames assistant GM running that squad. I'm sure those guys are watching just as closely as we are. But that'll take us in to the overtime period. If you have any other questions that aren't just Tokay's, which guys are in hot water with this Calgary Flames squad, please throw them in chat. I love to hear them. I love to see the community involvement because, hey, That's why I'm here this year, guys. I'm here for you guys. As I said, we're still looking for sponsors. So if you know of anybody, Calgary and area, that would love to get behind this stream, get their names down here, and have me read out ad reads until the cows come home, let us know. Game Over Network, all available, and contacts are on our website. So you know what? I started with the forward last time we did this. So I'll kind of do the, we'll start with the D-men. Artem Grushnikov. Hey, Artem, you've been better than average. I think you're going to start in the Wranglers. Rasmus Anderson. Craig Conroy is going to flip you when he can get the most return. Go prove to 31 other teams, actually 30, because we're not trading you to Edmonton. Or hey, because I'm going to bring this rumor up. Help Dallas, show Dallas how badly they need you and how badly Calgary needs Jason Robertson. Yes, yes. Anyways, Kevin Ball, penned in. Jake Bean, you know, as I said, he might be the guy that's just the consequence of Hunter Brustevich and Yan Kuznetsov starting to push their way towards being full-time NHLers. I'm not going to suggest they are that yet. Yan Kuznetsov just said, I think he's somebody that's putting the pressure on as a left-handed defenseman. Nick Cechek, I appreciate the work you've been doing, young man, but I think there's a little bit more room for you down in the A. As I said, he is an undrafted player. Love to see these undrafted guys getting their opportunities. He's only 25 years old. Okay, yeah, I agree. We'll talk about that in a bit. Joel Hanley, hey, I think I've been critical of Joel Hanley for the longest time. I think Joel Hanley is a perfectly fine 7th defenseman and no higher up in the lineup than that. But he's going to probably be playing alongside Mackenzie Weegar, and Derek Wills is going to talk about him all year long in his plus 11 goal differential, because plus minus is a great stat. Brustevich, I think he's playing his way into at least an early consideration to be with this team. Mackenzie Weegar, best defenseman on this team in my opinion. DeMille Muramanov. Great article written about him today and how maybe he's the one that needs to go spend his time in the AHL. The only reason I kind of like him as a 7th defenseman, if you have 2 guys get sick and you're on the road out east in Ontario, DeMille, you're the 12th forward. You've done it before. Go play your 7 minutes as a left winger. Literally only argument I can see for him staying up as that 8th defenseman, no matter how much I get sick in the back of my mouth hearing myself say the Flames are going to carry a D into the season. Zane Prek, not in the lineup today. You know what? I know a lot of people might disagree with me in this one. I think he's been the 2nd best young defenseman behind Hunter Brustevich. I've said it. However, as my dad pointed out to me, my dad watches this show every time he can. I know he's probably watching down from California. He got to watch the Seattle feed of this game. My dad pointed out he's a 19-year-old. Why are you expecting him to be a fully defined NHL player? With my comments towards him in the last game. Well, because his options are playing the NHL as a full-time NHLer, or somebody who's going to play the better part of 40 games, rotating in, at the age of 19. That's the situation. Can't send him to the AHL because of that dumb deal the NHL has struck with the CHL. So your options are he's going to be a full-time NHLer at the age of 19, or he's going to go and waste the development year in Ontario. Those are your 2 options. Put up or shut up. That's just the way it is. Braden Bahal, again, he's one of those guys who's maybe playing himself out of a job. As I said, he was fine today. But he wasn't the player I was gushing about last year. That's for darn sure. And I said all I can about Ilya Solovyov. Rory Cairns fighting as hard for a job as anyone can, wearing a jersey number that I think looks weird. Number 6 on a forward shouldn't be a thing. I think of Dennis Weidman every time I see it. Jonathan Huberdeau, $10 million. Michael Backlund, contract extension. You know what? I'm going to address this right now. I don't love the Michael Backlund contract extension. Don't love it. Do I love and appreciate everything Michael and Frida have done for the Calgary community every single day of the week? Did I say the same about Matt Stajan? 100%. And the funny thing is, I think that's a good comparable. I don't think Michael Backlund's a middle 6 forward anymore. I think he's a bottom 6 center. Going to be expected to be the second line center on this team. I think he should be playing alongside the likes of Ryan Lomberg by the time this season's over. And we just extended him for 2 more years. Can you go into a season without extending your captain? Probably not. I don't know if I would have given him 2. But I digress. Having Michael Backlund retire with the Sea of Red on his chest, I'm okay with that. But I'd be okay if that came after next year. Do the changing of the guard after we draft Gavin McKenna. Back to the roster. Dryden Hunt, AHL bound. Morgan Frost, going to be in that middle 6, stapled for the full year. Somebody who I'm surprised has not played in as many preseason games as I thought he would, Igor Sharangovich. That's a guy who needs to get off to a hot start and needs to maintain that. Whether that's he needs to rotate his pregame meals more or whatever superstition, he needs to get it going, and he hasn't been given a lot of time to show that he has. Being a guy we haven't seen, Blake Coleman. Blake, are you okay? Are we going to need to start talking about injury issues? As I said, as we know, he's one of the only guys on this squad that's older than me. I hate saying that. Justin Kirkland, as I said, he's one of those guys that's battling for a bottom 3 spot. I don't think he's number 1, 2, or 3 on my list. Matt Coronado, penned in. Sam Honzek, enjoy your year in the AHL, buddy. Maybe learn to take some face-offs. Adar Suniev, probably AHL bound. As I said, he's only 20. Lots of meat on that bone for him to improve. Adam Klapka, as I said, I don't necessarily see him as a opening day Calgary Flame. We continue. Sam Morton, I think he's been great. I think there could be debate that he needs to be the 13th forward the Flames carry. Captain McKenna. As much as I would love that, I'd pull the worth giving our captain to Dustin Wolf before you give McKenna the captaincy. We continue. Connor Zary, penned into the lineup. He's not going to be a center this year, despite every time the NHL roster sheet loads up. It says center. He's a winger. I think that knee injury solidifies it. Matvei Gridin, battling hard. He's one of those guys who's on the precipice. And I think the 2 goals today certainly strengthen his case. Clark Bishop, buddy, I love you. I'd love to have Heave Away your goal song pounding throughout the Saddle Dome. The only time we're going to do that was when the Wranglers are playing, at least to start the year. There's been an interesting talk online about having Ryan Lomberg eat some popcorn more than he did last year. I think that conversation will come up. I don't think it'll be at opening day. As I said, Marty Party's time as a Flame, I think, might be done. However, it might not be him being able to stay up. Or rather, stay in the AHL. I don't know. He's one of those players I think if you put him on waivers, he might get claimed, even though he did just sign that longer contract. We'll have to see. Joel Farabee, staple him in the middle 6 of this lineup. And Nazem Kadri will be your number 1 center to start the year. So that takes us through the forwards and defense. So I guess I have to make a prediction on the goaltending here, hey? With 2 games remaining in the preseason, I don't think we are going to be carrying 2 goaltenders born in the state of California to start the year, like I thought we did when we started the offseason. Gonna give a man credit who I know his former dentist. A guy that is certainly a pragmatic individual. I'll give Rhett Warner a little bit of credit on this. He said Cooley has gone from being the lovable, quotable guy to yelling at his defenseman. And if you're going to be a borderline AHLer, can't do that. Just can't. So I think Devin Cooley and Owen Say are going to start the season as your 1 and 2 in the AHL, leaving your goaltending tandem in the NHL, Dustin Wolf and Ivan Prosvetov. Then answer your question, Toke. I think 45 minutes is about all I'm willing to spend on a preseason game. But before we go, we will preview the rest of the season. Or the rest of the preseason. Before we head in to the NHL regular season beginning October 8th. Flames have their 2 final preseason games coming up this week. Wednesday, the Flames take on those dastardly Canucks at home at the Pengrove Saddledome. Puck drop is 7, so let's count probably 9:45-ish for the post-game show here on Game Over Network. It'll be myself and Anand Unnithan. We are going to let Anand probably host that one. Anand, if you're still around, have your computer set up ready. Because, hey, it's our preseason too, and Anand needs to get warmed back up on that side of the whole technical mumbo-jumbo. And the Flames end their preseason. Jets come to town Friday, October 3rd. And we have 5 days between that before the season starts. Battle of Alberta. Going to Vancouver. Back-to-back, the 8th and 9th. We'll be here at Game Over to bring you all the fan-focused post-game coverage. For myself and everyone at the Game Over Network, thank you so much for tuning in today. We'll see what the roster moves come in as they trickle in over the next few days. And hey, maybe the Flames claim a goaltender. Not saying 100%, but maybe. As long as it's not James Reimer. We'll see you again on Wednesday.